Intermittently, I receive comments from individuals who seem to pride themselves on safety over appearance, as though you can't have both. To me, this is a limiting belief, and I actually kind of find it odd that you'd be proud to wear ugly gear or to just assume that everything that looks good isn't going to protect you. Now, there is some subjectivity when it comes to beauty and flattery and what's attractive, but it's hard to argue whether or not something is clunky and crude versus elegant and efficient. I'd like to argue that you can have both. And I just wanted to posit the theory that it's all going to be okay and you can have nice things. When it comes to good design, it's that perfect balance of form and function. We never want something that's all form and no function that ends up being an art piece, and something that's all function and no form is a functional piece. It's something that you just use because it works. Doesn't have to be especially intelligent or effective. I mean, hopefully it's effective if you're going pure function, but at the very least, doesn't matter what it looks like. And I'm always questing after that good design. It's something that I've innately been drawn to and something that I've studied. And if you didn't know, I have a background in graphic design, and so that might make some sense as to a lot of the choices that I make on this channel. That's a little bit different than your average motorcyclist. So why is it even important to meld both of these? Why not just go purely functional on the motorcycle? And I have a couple of reasons. The first of which boils down to this concept of enclothed cognition. Now, this is a concept that was fleshed out in a Northwestern University study done in 2012 or published in 2012. First, I'll define the term for you. Enclothed cognition is the systematic influence that clothing has on a wearer's psychological processes. Now, the benefits or the pitfalls of this enclothed cognition will depend on two factors: the symbolic meaning of the clothing and the actual wearing of the clothes. In this study in particular, they wanted to observe competency and whether the clothing that somebody is wearing will actually make them more attentive and competent. They focused on two kinds of attention. There's selective attention and sustained attention. Selective attention is the ability to select one or more thing to focus on amidst various stimuli. That's a really important skill set, especially when you have to observe a lot of things at once. And sustained attention is just like what it sounds, the ability to focus long-term on one singular task without getting sidetracked and distracted. We all want that sustained attention, and that's actually harder and harder to come by these days. So the crazy thing about this study is that they used the same garments on all of the people to see how they felt in it, but in one instance, they associated this garment as a painter's coat, so just to protect yourself from paint. And in another experiment, they associated it with a doctor's lab coat, and they had people perform attention-related tasks. And when it was associated with a painter, there was no observable change in these attention spans. But when it was associated with being a professional doctor's lab coat, there actually were increases in both of these different kinds of attention. So they deduced that the influence of this garment had to do with someone both wearing it and having this strong association with it. It's not just about how the clothing looks and feels. It's also about the ritualistic nature of putting on these clothes. For example, putting on a suit and tie, priestly robes, a uniform. The clothes we wear affect our mood, attitude, and can set the tone for the activity that we are about to participate in. It's important that these vestments are imbued with a symbolic and cultural significance beyond just what they're made of and how they look. In the case of this study, it was nearly the placebo effect of just telling people that this lab coat is worn to do important things. These participants performed observably better while wearing this ceremonial lab coat as opposed to their street clothes, or as opposed to this same article of clothing imbued with a different symbolic meaning or a different purpose associated with it. And I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this when it comes to motorcycle safety gear. The leather jacket is such a quintessential piece of motorcycle gear, and it's strongly associated with kind of badassness, a kind of coolness, a kind of competence, and it's also a safety garment. So it's a really special piece, a lot like a helmet does, where there's these psychological effects that are beyond just the physical effects of if you were to get in an accident, because 99.9% of the times you ride, you're not going to be getting in an accident, but it's the just in case item. And beyond it just being to protect you, it also veils you with this kind of competency that very much might spill over into the way you ride and the way that other people perceive you as well. So when it comes to designing these kinds of garments, if they aren't designed well and attractively, number one, you're not going to want to wear it. And number two, when you wear it, you're kind of going to feel like a dork and it's just not going to feel right. You're going to feel out of place. You maybe feel like you shouldn't be wearing it. And psychologically, that could have a negative effect on you. But if you feel very cool, if you feel very competent, if you feel like this is the jacket of someone who rides, it will literally affect your attention in this case, and who knows the other positive effects. So yeah, why not shape these protective materials into attractive forms? That's just good design. In my opinion, motorcycle safety gear should be both appealing and highly functional. And this isn't a radical perspective to have, but I kind of wanted to put it out there to the naysayers who like to pretend like the look of the gear doesn't matter. And I think they dismiss that as a feminine thing or something that only women are preoccupied with. But I'm sorry, I don't want to look stupid. And I think a lot of other people don't want to look stupid too, but they won't admit it. Your gear doesn't need to be an art piece, but it does need to be inspired. And in this case, inspired by that perfect melding of form and function, which is good design. When it comes to purchasing some riding gear over other ones, why would you pay more for something that's functionally the same? And there's a lot of factors that go into that. Maybe the materials are finer. Maybe the construction is more sound. Maybe the manufacturing is done far more ethically. Maybe there's more rigorous testing. Maybe there's higher quality control. There's a lot of reasons why some of these more boutique motorcycle safety gear brands have that extra attention to detail, because they're not just pumping out so much volume. And when these materials and the construction and everything about the garment is finer, and maybe even just partly the fact that you did pay more for it, it spills over into the way you experience it. It's more enjoyable to touch and to wear. In my opinion, it inspires you to uphold a standard. It's like, this is a standard of someone who knows what they're doing, and I'm going to walk around knowing what I'm doing, or else I dare not wear this cool jacket. I think that motorcycle safety gear is the uniform of a competent person. Now, it's not that you can't be a great rider without a great jacket. That's silly. You can't buy your ability. But I just know that if you perhaps are someone who's sensitive to that kind of thing, it'll definitely affect you. And it's something to think about. There's plenty of people who are much better riders than I am and ride far less geared up. And that's their prerogative. And maybe they don't derive as much of that enclothed cognition as someone like me would. But there's something to be said about it. And I'd say at the very least, wear a helmet. You're not obligated to do that in Wisconsin. But I think, you do look cooler in a helmet 9 times out of 10, in my humble opinion. And as a final note on this whole concept of getting the right gear for the job and wearing it with pride and how it affects you, if something isn't quite working for you, you need to augment it. Don't be afraid to get things tailored. A lot of these brands are manufacturing garments to kind of fit a standard that not everyone slots into. And sometimes it's the averageness of some bodies that aren't even that common in the first place, but they know it's gonna align between two kinds of, body types, so it'll land there. I'm kind of surprised how often people are surprised that not everything fits them exactly the way they think it will. They don't take into account their fat distribution. They don't take into account their proportions, that they might be long-waisted, short-waisted, long leg, short leg. So it's all something to consider. And it's always a good call to just revise things if they're almost there and get them perfectly tailored to you because, or tailored to what you need or something kind of more flexible. There's a lot of great gear that has snaps and adjustments that should you fluctuate, they will keep pace with you. And the more you adapt the world around you to better suit your needs, the more you'll have the tools for success. So you're more likely to wear that gear, you're more likely to get your money's worth out of it, and you're more likely to hold on to it for a good long time and maybe even pass it on. So yes, you can have nice things. You can invest in nice things. You can have one nice thing instead of 5 okay things. And you can take your time in finding these and making the decisions, and then revise them should you need to make that 9 out of 10 thing into a 10 out of 10 thing. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Meghan Stark. Go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe to the channel. Please come back for more. We're going to talk about all sorts of cool topics going forward. And don't forget to ride safe.